He was deported from America 5 times. 5 times. ICE begged San Francisco to hold him for deportation. They said no and released him instead. 3 months later, he shot her dead on Pier 14 with a stolen federal agent's gun. The 32-year-old died in her father's arms screaming, "Help me, Dad," because San Francisco chose sanctuary policies over public safety. Her name was Kate Steinle. His name was Jose Inez Garcia Zarate. And the surveillance footage from that July evening in 2015 captured more than just a murder. It documented the moment when political ideology became a death sentence for an innocent American. This isn't just another murder case. This is the story of how every system designed to protect Kate Steinle failed her, how policy decisions made in San Francisco City Hall led directly to a father holding his dying daughter on a tourist pier, and how a man who should have been in Mexico instead became the center of a national firestorm about immigration in sanctuary cities. Kate Steinle was living proof that hard work and following the rules still mattered in America. At 32, she'd built a successful career in medical technology, developing devices that would save countless lives. She wasn't just making money, she was making a difference. On July 1, 2015, Kate was doing something millions of Americans do every summer, spending time with family. She'd chosen to explore Pier 14 in San Francisco's Embarcadero district with her father Jim and a family friend. It should have been one of those perfect evenings that creates lifelong memories between fathers and daughters. The pier was supposed to be safe. A public waterfront area designed for families and tourists to enjoy San Francisco's stunning bay views. Well-traveled, well-maintained, the kind of place where you'd expect to feel secure walking with your loved ones. Kate probably felt completely safe that evening. Why wouldn't she? She was in one of America's most famous cities, surrounded by other families enjoying the beautiful weather, walking with her father in a space designed for people like her. She had no idea that her own government's policies had placed a dangerous man on that same pier. A man who should have been thousands of miles away, deported for the 6th time, instead of sitting within range of innocent American families. While Kate was building her American dream, Garcia Zarate was building something entirely different, a record of criminal behavior and immigration violations that should have permanently barred him from American soil. This wasn't some desperate immigrant seeking a better life. Garcia Zarate had been deported from the United States 5 separate times. Each deportation was supposed to be the end of his American story, recognition that he had forfeited his right to be here through criminal actions. But he kept coming back. Each illegal re-entry wasn't just a violation of immigration law, it was a middle finger to American sovereignty and a direct threat to public safety. Each time he crossed the border illegally, he was essentially saying that American laws didn't apply to him. His pattern was visible to anyone who bothered to look: illegal entry, criminal activity, deportation. Before Kate's murder, he'd recently completed a federal prison sentence for illegal re-entry, a felony that proved his complete disregard for American law. But here's where the system failure becomes absolutely infuriating. In early 2015, just months before Kate's murder, San Francisco authorities had Garcia Zarate in custody. They could have ended this story right there. Picture walking with your dad on a beautiful evening, feeling completely safe. That's exactly what Kate was doing. She had no idea the man nearby had been kicked out of America 5 times and was carrying a stolen gun. She believed the system worked to keep dangerous criminals away from innocent people. ICE filed a detainer request asking San Francisco to hold Garcia Zarate for deportation proceedings. This wasn't unusual or burdensome, it was basic cooperation between federal immigration officials and local law enforcement, designed to protect people exactly like Kate Steinle. San Francisco said no. Under their sanctuary city policies, they refused to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement and released Garcia Zarate back onto the streets. They made a conscious political decision that their opposition to federal immigration policy was more important than public safety. Let that sink in. Federal authorities identified Garcia Zarate as someone who needed to be removed from the country, again. They followed proper procedures. San Francisco had him in custody and had the legal authority to hold him. Instead, city officials chose ideology over protection. They decided that their political stance on immigration was worth more than the lives of people like Kate Steinle who might encounter dangerous individuals they could have helped remove. This wasn't an oversight or paperwork mistake. This was a deliberate choice by San Francisco officials who knew they were releasing a 5-time deportee with a criminal history, someone federal authorities specifically wanted deported. The gun Garcia Zarate used to kill Kate belonged to a U.S. Bureau of Land Management ranger. It had been stolen from the agent's parked car just 4 days before the shooting, right there in San Francisco. So now we have a 5-time deportee who should have been deported again, walking free because San Francisco refused to cooperate with ICE, in possession of a stolen federal agent's weapon. Every element of this tragedy represents system failure at multiple levels. Whether Garcia Zarate stole the gun himself or found it as he later claimed, the fact remains that a government-issued weapon was about to be used to kill an innocent American woman whose own government had failed to protect her. Immigration authorities who couldn't keep a career border crosser out of the country. Local officials who refused to cooperate with federal deportation requests. A federal agent whose weapon wasn't properly secured. And an innocent woman who would pay the ultimate price for all these failures. The evening of July 1st started beautifully for Kate and her father. San Francisco in July offers some of the most stunning weather and scenery in the world. Pier 14 provided perfect views of the Bay Bridge, and the city skyline. Kate was probably talking with her dad about work, about life, maybe about future plans. They might have been taking photos or just enjoying each other's company in one of America's most iconic settings. Everything was exactly as it should be, a successful daughter spending quality time with her loving father. Meanwhile, Garcia Zarate was also on the pier. A man who should have been in Mexico was instead sitting on American soil with access to a loaded federal agent's weapon. The collision course was set. Garcia Zarate fired the stolen .40 caliber SIG Sauer handgun once. The bullet ricocheted off the pier's concrete walkway before striking Kate in the back, piercing her aorta and causing massive internal bleeding. Kate collapsed. In seconds, a healthy 32-year-old woman enjoying an evening with her father became a dying victim of policy failure. She fell into Jim Steinle's arms, and as her life slipped away, she screamed the words that would haunt a nation, "Help me, Dad." Those 3 words captured everything wrong with America's broken immigration system. A father helpless to save his daughter from a man who should never have been there. A woman dying because politicians chose ideology over her safety. A family destroyed by preventable policy failure. Garcia Zarate's response to shooting Kate revealed his character completely. Instead of helping the woman he'd just shot, instead of calling for medical assistance, instead of showing any remorse, he threw the gun into San Francisco Bay and tried to flee. This wasn't accidental. This was the behavior of someone who knew he'd committed a serious crime and cared more about avoiding consequences than about the life he'd just destroyed. Kate trusted that the system would keep her safe. That trust cost her everything. If you think families deserve better protection than what Kate got, subscribe. We cover the cases where policy failures turn into human tragedies. Police arrested Garcia Zarate an hour later at Pier 40. He didn't resist, didn't run far, didn't put up any fight. Just the mundane arrest of a man who had casually destroyed an American family. As investigators pieced together what happened, the scope of institutional failure became undeniable. The ballistics were straightforward. Garcia Zarate fired the stolen federal weapon, the bullet ricocheted and killed Kate. But the background details were infuriating. 5 previous deportations. Recent federal prison time for illegal re-entry. An ICE detainer that San Francisco had ignored just months earlier. A stolen federal agent's gun. Every single system had failed. If Garcia Zarate had been kept out after any of his 5 deportations, Kate would be alive. If San Francisco had honored the ICE detainer, Kate would be alive. If the federal agent had properly secured his weapon, Kate would be alive. Instead, every system failed, and Kate Steinle paid the price with her life while her father watched helplessly. Kate's murder immediately became national news, but not because mainstream media recognized its significance. The story exploded on social media as people learned about the system failures that led to her death. Here was a perfect victim, an innocent American woman killed by someone who should never have been in the country, whose deportation had been requested by federal authorities, whose detention had been refused by local officials for purely political reasons. The case highlighted everything broken about America's immigration system and sanctuary city policies. It wasn't abstract policy debate anymore, it was concrete tragedy with a name and a face and a grieving father. Kate died because San Francisco chose politics over public safety. How many system failures does it take before we admit the entire approach is deadly? What would you demand if this happened to your family? When Garcia Zarati's case went to trial in 2017, his defense team employed a strategy that insulted Kate's memory and outraged her family. They claimed the shooting was completely accidental, that Garcia Zarati had simply found the gun wrapped in a shirt and it accidentally discharged when he picked it up. This defense required the jury to believe an incredible series of coincidences. That a 5-time deportee just happened to find a loaded federal agent's gun on a busy pier. That it just happened to accidentally fire when he handled it. That the bullet just happened to ricochet in exactly the right direction to kill an innocent woman. The defense portrayed Garcia Zarati as a victim rather than a perpetrator, using his immigration status and language barriers to generate sympathy instead of accountability. They asked the jury to feel sorry for someone whose criminal choices and repeated illegal entries had created the conditions for Kate's murder. Most insultingly, they tried to separate Garcia Zarati's illegal presence from his actions on the pier, as if his status as a 5-time deportee was irrelevant to understanding why he was there with a stolen gun in the first place. Prosecutors faced the challenge of proving intent when the defendant claimed accidental discharge. While Garcia Zarati had clearly fired the gun that killed Kate, proving murder required establishing that he meant to shoot someone. They presented evidence of his behavior after the shooting, throwing the gun in the bay, trying to flee, showing no remorse or concern for Kate. These actions suggested consciousness of guilt, not the response of someone who had accidentally caused a tragedy. The prosecution highlighted Garcia Zarati's pattern of criminal behavior and immigration violations, arguing that this was someone who had repeatedly shown disregard for American law and had now escalated to taking an innocent life. But the ricochet complicated their case. The defense used the physical evidence to argue that Garcia Zarati couldn't have been aiming at Kate specifically, creating doubt about premeditation and intent. On November 30, 2017, the jury delivered a verdict that stunned the nation. Garcia Zarati was acquitted of murder and manslaughter charges. They found that Kate's death was essentially an accident rather than a crime deserving serious punishment. The only conviction was for being a felon in possession of a firearm, a charge that would later be overturned on appeal, leaving Garcia Zarati with no state-level consequences for destroying the Steinle family. Jim Steinle's reaction captured the heartbreak of a father who had watched his daughter die and then seen her killer escape justice. The verdict seemed to say that Kate's life had no value, that her death was just an unfortunate accident rather than the result of Garcia Zarati's criminal choices. The acquittal sent a chilling message about whose lives matter in America's justice system. It suggested that being an illegal immigrant with a criminal history could actually shield someone from accountability, even when their actions resulted in an American woman's death. A 5-time deportee kills an American woman with a stolen federal gun and walks away with no serious consequences. What does this verdict tell you about who the justice system is designed to protect? Watching a killer walk free after destroying an innocent family is infuriating. If you believe victims like Kate deserve real justice, not political games, subscribe. We break down how these system failures happen and why they keep costing innocent lives. Federal prosecutors stepped in where California had failed, filing charges related to Garcia Zarati's illegal possession of the firearm. These federal charges couldn't be influenced by San Francisco's politics or California's lenient approach to immigration-related crimes. In March 2022, Garcia Zarati finally pleaded guilty to federal gun charges, accepting some legal responsibility for his actions. But even the federal sentence was unsatisfying. Time served, meaning no additional punishment beyond the 7 years he'd already spent in jail. For the Steinle family, this minimal federal sentence felt like another slap in the face. Kate's killer would face no meaningful consequences for destroying their family and traumatizing her father forever. Kate Steinle's murder became a defining case in America's immigration debate. Her story was used to illustrate the deadly consequences of sanctuary city policies and inadequate immigration enforcement. The case gained particular prominence during the 2016 presidential election, with Donald Trump frequently citing Kate's death as evidence of immigration system failures. The Steinle family was invited to the Republican National Convention, where Kate's story became a symbol of policy failures that cost innocent lives. Kate's law was proposed in her honor, calling for increased penalties for illegal re-entry and defunding of sanctuary jurisdictions that refused to cooperate with ICE. While comprehensive reform remained elusive, Kate's case succeeded in highlighting the real-world consequences of political decisions. As Garcia Zarate faces deportation, his 6th removal from American soil, the larger questions raised by Kate's death remain unresolved. How many more innocent people will die because of sanctuary city policies that protect criminal immigrants over American citizens? Kate Steinle deserved better. She deserved immigration enforcement that kept 5-time deportees out of the country. She deserved local officials who cooperated with federal requests to detain dangerous individuals. She deserved a justice system that held her killer accountable. Instead, she became a victim of policy choices that valued political ideology over public safety. Every system that should have protected her instead failed her, from immigration enforcement to local politics to weapons security. If cases like Kate's, where every system that should have protected her failed, make you as angry as they make us, subscribe. We cover the stories where policy decisions have real, deadly consequences for innocent families. Kate Steinle's murder on Pier 14 was the predictable result of system failures at every level. A 5-time deportee who should have been permanently barred from American soil. Local officials who chose politics over public safety. A federal agent's unsecured weapon. A justice system that valued the rights of criminal immigrants over the lives of innocent Americans. Her final words, "Help me, Dad," echo as an indictment of every policymaker who enabled Garcia Zarate's presence on that pier. Jim Steinle couldn't save his daughter from the bullet that pierced her aorta, but her memory demands that we save other families from similar preventable tragedies. Kate deserved to live out her dreams, to continue her life-saving work in medical technology, to enjoy many more evenings with her father. Instead, she became a symbol of what happens when America fails to protect its own citizens from dangerous individuals who should never have been here. The surveillance footage from July 1, 2015 captured more than Kate's final moments. It documented the moment when sanctuary city policies became a death sentence, when political ideology trumped public safety, when system failure cost an innocent life. Garcia Zarate will likely be deported to Mexico, free to attempt his 7th illegal entry into America. Kate Steinle will remain dead, killed by a man her own government should have kept away from her. Her legacy must be a commitment to fixing the failures that cost her everything, ensuring that no other father has to hold his dying daughter because politicians chose ideology over safety. Kate Steinle's American dream ended on a San Francisco pier because every system designed to protect her chose something else instead. Our responsibility is making sure her death finally forces the changes that could have saved her life. Thank you for watching.